Hey, fair warning, not sure I'm going to be able to keep it together for this one. Yeah, okay, so here's the story. Nintendo just filed a patent infringement lawsuit in Japan against Palworld developer Pocketpair. They released a public statement announcing this suit on Wednesday, which said, Nintendo, together with the Pokemon Company, filed a patent infringement lawsuit in the Tokyo District Court against Pocketpair on September 18th, 2024. This lawsuit seeks an injunction against infringement and compensation for damages on the grounds that Palworld, a game developed and released by the defendant, infringes multiple patent rights. Nintendo will continue to take necessary actions against any infringements of its intellectual property rights, including the Nintendo brand itself, to protect the intellectual properties it has worked hard for to establish over the years. So the first thing to make clear here is that Nintendo is suing specifically for patent infringement and not copyright infringement. What that means is that they aren't suing Palworld because, let's say, the Palworld creatures look awfully similar to Pokemon creatures. You might remember when Palworld first got popular, this was a big point of discussion, with many people even theorizing that some pals were directly ripping Pokemon models and then being slightly altered for their game. Now, even if we think that's true, that isn't what this lawsuit is about. And trust me, if Nintendo could sue for that, they would. Absolutely. If they had even the tiniest shred of evidence that Pocketpair stole and ripped off Pokemon character models, they would sue them into oblivion. And you know what? That would be reasonable. You can't steal code or directly rip someone's assets for your own IP. I mean, you can do that, but you can't do it without expecting consequences. But again, that's not what's happening here. Looking fairly similar isn't enough, which is exactly why Nintendo hasn't sued for copyright infringement. No, they are suing for infringements on patents related to Pokemon, or in other words, they're suing because they believe there are mechanics, systems, or features from Pokemon games that Nintendo has patented and claim ownership of that are similar to the ones being used in Palworld. Now, at this point, you might be asking yourself, can you patent game mechanics and systems? Yes, you can. It's about as stupid as it sounds. It is one of the most frustrating things to me in this industry because you will get these games with really cool ideas or features, hats off to the people who make them, but then no one else can use them for 20 years, all thanks to patents. It stifles creativity, it stifles the evolution of genres, and legitimately holds back game development. It just makes gaming as a whole worse. We get worse games because of these patents, or we don't get games that are as good as they could be. Without question, we have seen less innovation and growth in games in this hobby, all due to patents. Here's a few examples, some well-known things off the top of my mind. Not really, I've written them down, but okay. So the first one that particularly pisses me off is Warner Brothers' patent for the Nemesis system from Shadow of Mordor. If you don't know, in that game, you would regularly come in conflict with these unique named enemies over and over again. So you would fight someone with the name, I don't know, Gorthar the Destroyer. And then whatever the outcome of the fight, whether you won, whether you lost, whether you ran away, eventually later on in the game, you could bump into them again. And in that next encounter, Gorthar would remember what happened and comment on what occurred, saying something like, hey, you're gonna run away from me again? And then on top of that, though, they would evolve, getting stronger or weaker, climbing up in the ranks, or being demoted, all based on what occurred in your previous fight with them. And this would keep happening over and over and over again, getting more layers, deeper interaction and history between the characters, and then these nemesis creatures fighting other characters, and then getting stuff based on that. It was just a super cool system, a lot of fun to engage with, and it added a whole heck of a lot of drama and personality to what would otherwise just be fighting forgettable mini bosses or elites in many other games. This Nemesis system was so awesome. Myself and a lot of people really liked it. However, it hasn't been used in any other game franchise since. Not because it wasn't good, but because Warner Brothers had patented it. So unless they happen to make another game that uses the Nemesis system, which they have not beyond the Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor games, we are not going to see any other game that has it until their patent runs out in 2035. Yes, we've got another 11 years of waiting. Actually, I don't even know if a game can start development using that system until after the patent runs out. So in which case, we might be waiting until 2040 before we see another game that has a Nemesis-like system. Thanks a lot, Warner Brothers. Really appreciate it. And what is so frustrating about this, like I said, is that it really stifles growth and innovation in gaming. Because yes, the Nemesis system was amazing. Like, hats off to the Shadow of Mordor developer Monolith. They made a phenomenal system that really elevated the open world experience. It just made it so much more interesting coming across these difficult encounters, these Nemesis, and having these layers and depth and history and backstory just based on what you did with them in the game. It was so cool. But now it's been 10 years since the initial release of Shadow of Mordor, and in an alternate timeline, we could have had many other games using even better, more evolved, and improved versions of that system. In fact, I'll just say it plainly, many open world games would have been better, without question, if they could have implemented some variation of the Nemesis system. But they didn't, because in this timeline, in reality, thanks to Warner Bros. Patent, it hasn't and it will not happen for at least another 11 years. Now, I will add a note here. With patents like this, we could technically see other games use these things, but in actuality, it never happens, because if another game developer wanted to have something like that in their game, they would have to pay Warner Bros. A licensing fee, and that fee would likely cost a ton of money. So as a result, they just don't bother. And that's the thing. The result is we don't get to play any more games with the Nemesis system until after 2035, or if Warner Bros. Eventually gets around to making more games with it. I think they have a Wonder Woman game that's supposedly going to be implementing it, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly. We've only had 2 in the past decade, and we could have had a whole lot more. And if you haven't played the game, you might not fully understand, but this is, I think, a perfect example of a patent stifling the industry. Open world games, having the inclusion of Nemesis systems would add a lot more to so many games that are out there right now. And that one's really personal to me for that reason, because I played Shadow of Mordor and was blown away by the system when I first encountered it. And at the time I thought, wow, this is a great mechanic. Open world games are going to be so much better and evolving and improving on this in the future. But nope, that's not what happened. There's plenty of other patents that I feel have held back gaming as well. Another good example is the Bandai Namco patent on loading screen mini games. So for a lot of years, loading screens were a pretty big issue, something we had to deal with, especially back in the 90s. You would often have these games with loading screens that took a full minute or even multiple minutes of waiting before you could get back to playing. For the most part, this just meant staring at a progress bar, maybe getting some concept art, some tips on the screen. Usually it meant going up to get a drink or go to the bathroom. But then in 1995, Bandai Namco, they had this great idea. What if they offered mini games that you could play while you waited for the main game to load? And that was pretty cool. They did this with their game Ridge Racer as well as Tekken 5. Those are 2 most notable ones. Unfortunately though, they also patented this idea of what they called auxiliary games while waiting for the main game, and so we never saw it again. This patent did happen to expire in 2015, but by that point, most games no longer had multi-minute loading screens, so there wasn't much use case for it any longer. But there was an entire 20-year period where it would have been awesome to have mini games in our loading screens for many different games beyond Bandai Namco owned ones, but we didn't, thanks to Bandai Namco's patent. Here's a few others quickly. BioWare had a patent of the dialogue wheel with the cardinal directions of a wheel representing certain sentiments or regular responses. Sega's patent of the arrow over vehicle navigation system from Crazy Taxi, which Sega then used to sue Fox over, as they had a similar mechanic in the Simpsons driving game. Katamari has a patent for its whole shtick, which is rolling an object around that picks up other objects in the environment, growing ever bigger in the process. If you wondered why we never saw more games like it, it's because of the patent. Bloober Team had a patent for playing in 2 alternate versions of the same space simultaneously on a split screen, which is a mechanic they used in the game The Medium. And then Nintendo also even had the Sanity System patent all the way back for Eternal Darkness, although that one was evidently specific enough that many other games have released with similar systems, but not exactly the same. But back to Nintendo suing Pocketpair over Palworld. Let's dive into that a little further. So right now, we don't actually know exactly, and apparently Pocketpair, they don't know either, exactly which patents Nintendo are suing for. They have said that there are multiple patents being infringed upon, but haven't clarified exactly what ones. Now, Nintendo has quite a few Pokemon-related patents listed. Broadly speaking, these things cover the following: throwing a ball to capture weakened creatures, and then throwing that ball again after capture to release them under your control. summoning and riding a creature you've captured via the aforementioned ball system, actively swapping mounts while riding them, storing captured creatures inside of a ball and or a terminal-like system. And how about this one? Encouraging healthy sleeping habits by tending to captured creatures in their game. I am not joking. They have a patent for encouraging healthy sleeping habits. Now, those are the dumbed down, simplified explanations of these patents. The fact is that every single one of these has very specific language with fine details on exactly how those systems are implemented, with minutia like exactly how is a ball thrown that captures a creature? How many shakes does the ball do in an attempt to capture said creature? The specific method of riding and swapping your captured creatures, and what specific ways does the game promote healthy sleeping habits? So for example, in the patent that they have for, quote, the gamification of health awareness based on wake up time, it reads like this. An object is to provide a user with motivation to enjoy waking up in the morning and guide the user to sufficient awakening by generating a breeding event in a breeding game of a virtual life form when the user wakes up in the morning, and it goes on from there. But yes, broadly speaking, that list of things are some of the stuff that Nintendo has Pokemon patents for. They're just a few examples. They have many, many more patents pertinent specifically to Pokemon. Now, as of now, we just don't know which combinations of these patents Nintendo is claiming have been infringed. And as I mentioned, Palworld developer Pocketpair, they don't know either. According to them, they've not yet been told. They actually released an official statement via Twitter in regards to the suit, and it says, regarding the lawsuit, yesterday a lawsuit was filed against our company for patent infringement. We have received notice of this lawsuit and will begin the appropriate legal proceedings and investigations into the claims of patent infringement. At this moment, we are unaware of the specific patents we are accused of infringing upon, and we have not yet been notified of such details. Pocketpair is a small indie game company based in Tokyo. Our goal as a company has always been to create fun games. We will continue to pursue this goal because we know that our games bring joy to millions of gamers around the world. Palworld was a surprise success this year, both for gamers and for us. We were blown away by the amazing response to the game and have been working hard to make it even better for our fans. We will continue improving Palworld and strive to create a game that our fans can be proud of. It is truly unfortunate that we will be forced to allocate significant time and matters unrelated to game development due to this lawsuit. However, we will do our utmost for our fans and to ensure that indie game developers are not hindered or discouraged from pursuing their creative ideas. We apologize to our fans. As always, thank you. It goes on. And that last bit is, I think, really the rub. It's so frustrating on so many levels. In terms of this lawsuit and the potential outcome, right? Well, if they don't settle out of court, odds are Pocketpair will be required to make adjustments to whatever systems or mechanics are found to infringe upon Nintendo's patents. And then after that, they will probably also have to pay some sort of fee or fine to Nintendo. Either way, Nintendo is going to cost Pocketpair a good chunk of money, whether that's just the cost of having to go through a lawsuit, even if they are found not guilty of infringement, or if they are found guilty of infringement, having to then pay Nintendo directly. The game is not going to shut down. Well, I guess it could if Nintendo bleeds Pocketpair dry enough of money that they go out of business, in which case, yeah, the game could probably shut down. And all of this in the name of some flippin' patents on game mechanics. Honestly, this entire situation, it's crap. Unless Nintendo has like some proof that Pocketpair stole and copy-pasted source code from Pokemon games to use in Palworld, if that's the case, I totally understand. But the idea that they're suing the devs because the games have similar mechanics like capturing monsters in a ball or incentivizing healthy sleeping habits, like it's all garbage, man. Patents over basic game mechanics and systems are dumb and they shouldn't be a thing as far as I'm concerned. I am no legal expert. This is completely out of my depth, but just the basis of it is so frustrating to me. And I also want to make it clear, I am in full support of companies protecting their brand and protecting their IP. If someone is straight ripping Pokemon code, changing the colors and slapping a new name on the game, that's one thing. But putting patents on ideas for systems and features, it's just bad. It sucks now. It's always sucked, especially when it comes to this point where we are seeing lawsuits. It is bad for game developers. And it's bad for us, the gamers. This stifles creativity. It prevents more games from not just having similar systems, but then improving on them, adding to them, and making better games as a result. And Nintendo coming out and suing Pocketpair, this is the kind of show of force that will likely prevent other developers from trying to make games that are similar in that monster capture genre. Indie devs, they don't want to risk getting sued by Nintendo. Like, are you kidding me? So the end result is many won't bother. They won't try to make a game that innovates and expands upon Pokemon's shortcomings. They'll just do something else entirely. Now, I do realize as well, there's still a lot we don't know, and there's definitely, without question, a lot of nuance here. Other monster capture games do in fact exist that Nintendo hasn't sued for patent infringement, and we don't know yet exactly what Nintendo is suing for. They haven't specified. We see their patents, we know they're suing because they think multiple patents have been infringed, they just haven't said what ones. So the patents that have been infringed upon, how they were infringed, exactly how closely are Palworld's mechanics similar to that of Pokemon's, all of that will come out during the process of this lawsuit, assuming it all goes public. Even still though, like the Nintendo story specifics aside, generally speaking, I dislike this practice and what it does to gaming. The Warner Bros. Patent on the Nemesis system is the one that tilts me in particular. I think a lot of my vigor in this video is like suppressed anger over that. The fact that more games don't have, every open world game should have a Nemesis system, and they would all be better because of it. It's a blanket statement, but you honestly, man, it just tilts me so much. It was so damn cool, and they've made pretty much zero use of it over this past decade, all because they have a patent. They're not making other games, and no one else can do it either. So I guess we'll just get to experience games with Nemesis systems sometime after 2035. If I'm still alive, looking forward to it. I just hate it so much, dude. I hate this so much, honestly. It makes gaming worse. No, thank you. All right, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. See you next time.